Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today our topic is none other than the coronavirus. Joining us to discuss is former Director General of the Israeli Health Ministry, Professor Yoram Lass, and lecturer for emergency and disaster management at Tel Aviv University, Dr. Yoav Yechezkeli. But first, not only has the coronavirus captured the fears of the world over, nations across the globe are now bracing for a so-called second, potentially more deadly wave of infections. And in Israel, the situation is no different, as Prime Minister Netanyahu and Health Ministry explains.
אנחנו סיימנו עכשיו קבינט קורונה, הישיבה נפתחה בסקירה של המומחים, הם מראים לנו שיש עלייה חדה מאוד בתחלואה. יכול להיות שאנחנו כבר בתוך המדד הזה של הכפלה תוך 10 ימים של קצב הנדבקים, אני מקווה מאוד שלא.
Now, Dr. Yechezkeli, I actually want to start with you. What are your initial reactions to this, to Netanyahu's statements?
Well, we see that there are more cases of corona nowadays, but it was rather expected when the lockdown was released and people could meet each other in the open places and in the public. So it was quite expected that new cases will arrive and emerge. However, I think that it is not that bad, and it is not really a large wave, but really a little surge of cases. It was expected, mainly among youngsters who go to schools when the schools were open, which is, in my opinion, not so bad for the young people to be exposed to corona, because what is most interesting in this disease is the big variation between a severe form that strikes the elderly and the mild form, if at all, that strikes the youngsters.
The question, though, is that what then of the health ministry's suggestion that up to 5,000 people might be on ventilators? Do you suggest that this is maybe an exaggeration then?
I think this is an exaggeration. I think that because if more young people will be exposed, then fewer people will get to be severe cases. We won't have much severe cases if young people are affected nowadays when contracting the disease in schools and in kindergartens. So I think this is an exaggeration. I think that we should prepare for more people ventilated, but I don't think it will overflow the capacity of the Israeli hospitals, as it didn't happen in the first wave of the disease.
In Israel.
In Israel,
right.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Lass, I want to turn to you. You, contrary to what people are saying about a second wave, you've said that there's never been a first wave. Could you explain that?
I have a comment after Netanyahu's words. Netanyahu is talking about an artifact. Artifact because as you increase the number of tests, you also increase the number of infected people you find. You agree?
Yes.
This is exactly what happened. As we increase the number of tests, we find more people. It's an artifact.
But are you then also suggesting that the infection rate has not gone up?
No. And also, my general suggestion is, now I'm really serious, in the Middle East, this virus is not really active. Best example, our 5 million Palestinian population, our neighbors. Netanyahu does not really care about the health situation. And within this population of 5 million people, there are almost no cases.
But we also know, as you just said,
no cases.
But as you just said, that is in direct correlation with the number of tests being conducted. And I think you can agree that in Israel, far more tests have been conducted than within the Palestinian territories.
I'm talking about mortality, not about tests. Mortality is a real thing.
Right.
It's a head count. You count the number of people dying. Very few. A drop in the ocean. Very few. And the last number I have to give you, if you look on March and April, the big corona hysteria. March and April 2020 in Israel. 227 people less died, less, compared to the same period last year. So instead of having a wave, we have a valley.
So
No first wave on the statistics.
So, okay, can we submit then, I'll submit that Israel's harsh response to the coronavirus, would that not have maybe played a role in the low numbers in Israel?
I think the low numbers in Israel are affected by the age of the population. We are a
Right.
young country.
Agree.
As well as the Palestinian, this is a young state or country, young people. We saw more severe cases and more death in countries that have elderly population, like in Spain, in Italy, in France, in Belgium. I think, in my opinion, the lockdown that was done at the beginning of this disease was justified. I think it should have been done. It should have been done even stronger and earlier. But I think it should have been opened much earlier as well, as we saw the features of the disease, and we learned the behavior of the virus. We could have eased this lockdown much earlier and allow people to go outside and even get infected. We know nowadays, according to a serological survey that was done in Israel by Tel Aviv University, that 10 times the number of confirmed cases of corona were exposed and have antibodies to the virus. That is, we have in this country not 17,000 or 18,000 people with corona disease, but about 200,000 people that were exposed to the virus. So most of them went through the disease without any symptoms. They contracted the disease asymptomatically. They are healthy. They are most probably immune, which is good, which is a good outcome. I wish there were more like this. So I think now, when the lockdown was released, we will have more asymptomatic exposures like this. And this is, I think, a good phenomena because it will contribute to a herd immunity.
Now, do you think that maybe Israel's good luck, so to speak, or the Middle East's good luck with this virus is unique to the Middle East because of our lockdowns, because of the age? You know, like, should America have also maybe just kept their borders open as well, or Spain or Italy for that matter?
Nobody has a real answer about the general story of those respiratory viruses. And as was mentioned, we are the youngest population in the Western world. Youngest. Italy is the oldest except Japan. So this is a very clear explanation. It's not luck. But as you mentioned, there is the general question of a lockdown or shutdown. And we always have to remember the price. The price is of a biblical proportion. The lives of hundreds of millions of people was destroyed. I have projects in developing countries. People will starve and die by the millions. And in developed countries, more people will die from unemployment than corona. Unemployment is mortality. And I can give you the list. Depression, suicide, pressure, blood pressure, heart attacks,
Domestic violence.
crimes, family violence, drugs, alcohol. Imagine what happened to people's life for something
are you suggesting?
which is comparable to influenza. We had even worse influenza situations in the past. You don't destroy the lives of people for that.
Well, so I want to press on that a little bit because again, we're talking about if we're talking about the lockdown and all that, you know, do you agree that at least until, as Dr. Yechezkeli mentioned, until we knew what the behavior of the virus was the first lockdown at any degree warranted?
I don't. And I take the Chinese example, which was very early.
Well, they had a very strict lockdown in Wuhan.
Right. But what happened afterwards, when the lockdown was released, if indeed the lockdown protects the life of people, as you remove the lockdown, you expect a big mortality wave of those people presumably protected by the lockdown. It never happened. Not in China, not in 24 countries in Western Europe, where I have all the statistics, not in Israel. There is no mortality wave. There are not even new cases. I mean, new people who are really sick. Not the people with the serological test or the PCR test. No new people are really sick as you remove the lockdown. And what happened to people's lives because of the lockdown is like World War II. It's unbelievable. I talk to people. What happened to their lives? Completely destroyed. For what? For what? And it was Netanyahu's interest. In Israel, we had the same world situation of panic, but Netanyahu, he benefited a lot politically from this hysteria. It's a monstrous hysteria, baseless.
So you're saying that every country that had a response to the coronavirus was more political than not?
No. I mean, I talked about Israel.
Right. But Israel is far from the only country that has had a response to the coronavirus, a strict response.
No, I agree. We have in Israel, we have two layers. One is the worldwide layer, which results from the virus of the social media. That's the real virus.
But are you suggesting that Netanyahu benefited as a secondary?
He was resuscitated, not benefited. He was politically morbid.
But
he was resuscitated.
Okay, so even if all right, well,
I agree that from a public health point of view, in my opinion, the lockdown was not necessary. Mm-hmm. Social distancing gives the best protection and is most important in protecting from acquiring infectious disease. Much more than a complete lockdown. So it was not necessary, actually. And I think it should have been released much earlier. I'm not just a lecturer in the university. I have a family practice. And I see the consequences nowadays of people who were locked down for 2 months at home without balancing and without treating their chronic conditions enough. And with cases of domestic violence, and with much anxiety. The anxiety is really horrifying. I think, in my opinion, the fear is, if looking at the leadership who should lead us in managing this situation, I think fear is not a good strategy. And the strategy of the leadership in here and maybe in other countries as well was to put some frightening on the population and on the citizens. It's not a good guide. I think much better is to explain and have the cooperation of the population with knowledge on how this behaves, how the virus behaves. Not just punishments on not wearing masks in the public. In fact, I think masks are good only in closed spaces. In the open spaces, in the open air is most safe for people to be in. because they are not the ability to be exposed and to be infected in the open air is very, very low. So actually, if I was asked, I would say no need to wear masks in the open air, just when entering closed buildings and spaces.
All right, well, I want to take a look actually at some of the newer guidelines as we're easing some restrictions and keeping others that Netanyahu is proposing. Let's take a look.
אני כן הייתי ממקד את המאמצים הגדולים למציאת החיסון, אבל בה בעת הייתי מקדם גם דברים אחרים שמאפשרים לנו במקטע הבדיקות, מהירות הבדיקה, העניין של הנוגדנים, להגיע למצב שאנחנו יכולים לאפשר לאוכלוסיית ישראל, כנראה לכל האוכלוסיות, לתפקד גם במצב של היעדר חיסון.
Dr. Lass, you're laughing already. Share your thoughts?
Netanyahu has two periods. Before the government was created, the so-called Corona emergency government, and after. Before he managed to assemble the government, he was talking about medieval age, the Black Death. He talked about we did not prepare for the Holocaust. Now we are prepared. He talked about the end of humanity. His words, not mine. This was before. This was before. Now he is much more relaxed.
Well, but I want to focus this less on the political aspect and more on the viral and the the medical aspect, because again, you mentioned, if I go back to your own words from earlier, you mentioned the flu. Now, if we compare the coronavirus to the annual flu.
I'll give you the numbers.
Well, so the annual flu, it kills between 250 and 500,000.
680,000 people every year in a very severe.
But that's with seasonal, that's with seasonal flu vaccines.
The WHO, World Health Organization numbers are for the flu situation between 250,000 when the epidemic, worldwide, when the epidemic is mild, up to 680,000 people.
So COVID by comparison
is now medium.
So COVID by comparison
is medium.
In 6 months with complete shutdowns in many countries and closing borders, etc., and lockdowns, which you said you were against, has already hit 400,000 deaths.
Which is a medium flu situation.
But it's also not over either.
Yes, but it is over in Israel. It is over in Western Europe. Finished. And I'll tell you that what they call excess death in Western Europe, in 24 countries, the average, 15% more than the 2017 flu epidemic. 15% more cannot justify the destruction we see. In America, it's not finished yet. I'll give you the numbers in a minute, which are not final.
Dr.
I think we should still be vigilant for more cases to come, because this virus behaves differently than the flu virus. The flu virus changes every year, mutates, and we have different strains.
Yeah, coronavirus already has 30-something strains.
Okay, but still it's the same basic strain, and its mutation rate is much slower than the rate of other viruses as the influenza. So I think that as long as we don't have a vaccine and we don't have any herd immunity, we still should be on watch for more cases. But I think we should do the things that should be done, like epidemiological investigations in cases where there are sick people at schools. I don't see any reason why to shut down a whole school of 1,000 or 2,000 students because of one teacher or one pupil got ill. There should be a quick closing of the circle with testing and contact tracing, and then isolate only those who were in contact with this sick person.
I mean, that's usually what they do during the closure. And then a lot of these schools, I think there were 130-something schools that closed, 63 of which are already reopening.
I'm afraid we don't have enough abilities in this connection to do fast and quick and efficient epidemiological investigations. This is what we should aim for. And I'm, by the way, to look about the complete picture, I'm a little bit worried that the professionals, the experts in epidemiologists, they should come, and many of them came and said, the leaders, this is not a catastrophe. This is a thing we can manage without being switched to draconian actions upon the whole people.
So what is the cost analysis here? At what point do you think some of the measures that we've taken against coronavirus would have been warranted? How bad does coronavirus would it have had to be?
We should have done exactly what we do or should do with a regular flu epidemic. We are going to have a flu epidemic in the winter. We should take precautions. The elderly should protect themselves. We should isolate the patients. But this is nothing much more than a severe, in some cases, not in Israel, a severe flu epidemic.
All right, well, I'm so sorry, I have to finish. Yeah. That is unfortunately, yes, Dr. Yechezkeli, I apologize for cutting you off, but that is all the time that we have today. Thank you, of course, again, Dr. Yechezkeli and Professor Lass for joining us. Tune in next time on Insider for more in-depth analysis on everything Israel. Also, if there is a topic that you want us to cover next, please let us know in the comment sections online. And finally, remember that for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku channels. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.